Oh mate, I love all the different world names in Space Harrier. Obviously there's Geezer, but who could forget Top Bloke and Legend? Sega were huge supporters of the Game Boy Advance, and while we previously looked at a whole bunch of GBA games, there are still so many more that we can check out. As I was sorting out a big list of games I could cover, I was honestly a bit taken aback by how many games they developed and published for the system. I appreciate it was the first console they developed for after announcing they were going to stop developing first-party hardware, but they really hung their hat on the old GBA and made some fascinating stuff for it. So let's take a look at 5 more titles that they made for the system and see how they hold up in 2025.
Get Set Radio!
Let's look at the fun.
The 2003 Jet Set Radio port by Vicarious Visions is a really impressive effort. This is clearly based on the same engine Vicarious were using to port the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games to the GBA. This isometric demake of the Dreamcast Classic somehow manages to maintain the cel-shaded 3D character models from the original. Despite the change of perspective, the control scheme is remarkably similar, with the R button used for boosting, and turning is done by pressing left and right on the D-pad. The real issue with it is having to do the motions for the big tags on the D-pad, which never feels particularly responsive or accurate. I'm sure you can get a feel for it eventually, but it's a messy solution that I think could have just been changed to pressing some buttons in a sequence. It would have kept the action fast instead of having to constantly grind to a crawl every time you messily attempt a sizable graffiti. What really surprised me with this port was the quality of the music. Now obviously the soundtrack is cut down, but what is here is very clear. The samples are nowhere near as disgustingly crunchy as some GBA games, and as a result this does really look, sound and play like Jet Set Radio on a handheld.
Get Set Radio!
It's compilation time as we take a look at Bit Studios' Sega Arcade Gallery from 2003. This collection bundles 4 Superscalar arcade games, so now you can play Afterburner, Outrun, Space Harrier and Super Hang-On anywhere you like. Unfortunately, some of these ports fare better than others. Afterburner is an odd choice for inclusion as it lacks the adjustable speed of Afterburner 2. This means you're always flying at the same speed and it makes the action feel strangely mundane. I couldn't figure out how to perform barrel rolls either, so you just end up with quite a slow and limited version of the arcade classic. Outrun fares a lot better and manages to replicate the handling and challenge of the arcade original really well. Despite the crushed visuals, it honestly felt like very little had been sacrificed in this port, so fans of this iconic racing game will get a lot out of this one. Space Harrier is another great port even though the movement controls default to inverted. The only thing that really felt like it was missing was the nice transitions between stages, but honestly it's not a massive loss considering how well they've shrunk the experience down to run on the GBA. And finally we have Super Hang-On, which feels like it's permanently stuck on easy mode. This port doesn't really require you to brake, so you can just jam the turbo button and have an absolute blast. It is a shame that a lot of the challenge of the arcade original is missing, but if you've ever wanted to see more of the game then this version is the one to play because it's just so easy to make progress in. Sonic Pinball Party is a Sonic spin-off that feels like it should have been called SEGA Pinball Party instead, because the game's focus is more of a celebration of lots of different SEGA franchises and not just Sonic. This pinball game was a joint development between Sonic Team and Jupiter, and also released in 2003. There's 3 tables to play on, a Sonic one, a Knights one, and an unlockable Samba de Amigo one. The presentation is more like a traditional pinball game as well, ditching the Sonic is the ball concept from Sonic Spinball. While it controls well, the ball feels very light and floaty, and because of the top-down perspective, the game also suffers from a lot of scrolling. This is not ideal for high-score play, as you keep losing track of where the flippers are. There's a lot of game modes in here, as well as the tiny Chow Garden from Sonic Advance, but on the whole this feels like a very mediocre effort that plays well enough, but feels strangely hampered by the hardware it's being played on. Space Channel 5 Ooh La La's Cosmic Attack is a GBA demake of the original Space Channel 5, and a surprisingly decent effort as well. Developed by Art Company and released in 2003, the audio is the real star of the show here, as it's nice and clear and suffers from none of the nasty compression you hear on most GBA games. This rhythm game requires you to match the inputs of the invading Morolians in a Simon Says manner, and it really requires you to play it on real hardware because emulation introduces a ton of input lag. All the visuals are pre-rendered, so it looks pretty similar to the Dreamcast game, but the compression on the backgrounds can be a little ugly. Played on a real GBA, this is another impressive rendition of a more advanced Dreamcast game that you can now take with you anywhere. And finally, we're going to take a look at 2002's Super Monkey Ball Jr., developed by Realism and Creations. This is another demake that attempts to crush Super Monkey Ball down into a portable game. While this is a commendable effort, it does feel like the hardware is doing this a disservice. There's no denying the effort that has gone into this, as it's a fully fledged 3D Monkey Ball on a handheld. It looks and sounds exactly like you'd want it to, but playing a Monkey Ball game on a D-pad never feels right. These games require analog input, and as a result it never really overcomes the fact that you're playing something that requires precise analog movement with a GBA D-pad. If you can adjust to it, then there's some great Monkey Ball action in here that you can take anywhere, but this sort of experience is perhaps a little too much for the humble GBA. An impressive effort all the same. And that's it for another Sega Driven video. A massive thanks as always to our lovely Patreon backers who have financially supported the creation of this video. If you'd like to appear alongside them and gain access to exclusive videos and the ability to vote on the subject of our next video, then head on over to patreon.com/SegaDriven and pledge at the tier that best suits you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.